When it comes to convertible laptops, two of the most popular options are the Dell XPS 13 2-in-1 and the HP Spectre x360. Now, I've never actually seen the XPS 13 2-in-1 before, so I can't make any comparisons between those two particular devices, but what I will do is make a comparison between the Spectre x360 against just a normal laptop. And even though traditional laptops are going to be cheaper because they don't need that complex folding hinge, this thing, the X360, is still among one of the best value for $900 at the base model, even if you only ever use it as a laptop. Now, if you want to skip to any particular part of this review, you can jump to these timestamps on the screen. Otherwise, we'll get into the review, starting with the build of this device. The X360 is made from anodized aluminum and it is very rigid. The screen assembly has a little bit of flex when you twist it, but it's very minimal. The top case has zero flex, but the keyboard itself has a little bit of give if you press hard in the center of the keyboard. The hinge is excellent. It's actually one of the best hinges that I've seen so far. The tension is perfect. It's a one-hand open, but stiff enough to not move at all when you tap on it, and with very little screen wobble. To achieve all three of those things simultaneously is something you rarely see outside of the most expensive laptops. Now, since we're already talking about the hinge, I also want to bring up the screen and you'll see why in a little bit. You have three options with this. There's a 1080p screen, a 1080p with a privacy filter, and a 4K AMOLED without a privacy filter. The XPS 13 does not have that OLED option. The unit that I'm reviewing is the 1080p privacy filter display, and this thing measures extremely well. If you just looked at the specs of this thing, you would say this is one of the best displays of any laptop, period. It's brighter than the 13-inch MacBook Pro. In fact, it's the second brightest display I've measured so far, just behind the XPS 13, but I mean, that's a completely different device, even ignoring the screen size. This thing has the highest contrast ratio by far of any laptop that I've reviewed, which is particularly impressive for an IPS panel. The second highest is around 1650 on the Surface Book 2 15-inch. Color gamut and color accuracy are both good, perfect for most content creators, but not quite professional level. Like if you want to work with HDR footage, you would need to go beyond the sRGB color gamut, but I mean, very few people do. So yeah, on paper, it looks amazing, but under no circumstances do I recommend the privacy filter. For one, enabling it looks identical to simply lowering the brightness all the way down, like it doesn't decrease viewing angles at all. You can still see what's on your screen even at sharp viewing angles. But more importantly, and this is the real reason why I don't recommend it, the viewing angles are so bad that even with your eyes roughly 1.5 feet away from the screen, there is a slight vignette effect. If you don't know what that is, here's a dramatic example. So the edges of the screen get a little bit darker, which you might expect for a privacy filter, but it goes a little bit further than that. So if you're someone who uses the touchscreen a lot, either just normally or as an artist using the included pen, the viewing angles are so bad that even the tiny amount of screen wobble that would otherwise be unnoticeable becomes quite noticeable. So what I mean is the bottom of the screen gets a little bit brighter and then a little bit darker as the screen vibrates back and forth, and that tiny shift in brightness is what's actually noticeable and annoying to me. Now, I've bashed on this long enough, but the key takeaway from all of this is that viewing angles are especially important with touchscreen laptops. The keyboard uses a 65% layout with an extra column on the right. The key travel feels just a little bit short, but it's very tactile and it was very easy to get used to. Within about 10 minutes of typing, I was able to get up to my usual 105 words per minute with good accuracy. Funny story though, the power button unironically took me 5 minutes to find when I first got this device. It's on the rear left corner if you're curious. And the rationale was that it's positioned there so you can easily access it on both laptop and tablet form. The trackpad uses a smooth, frosted glass surface with accurate tracking and acceleration curve, something I didn't really expect given the price of this thing. It's ever so slightly on the heavier side, not heavy per se, but I'd like to see the weight get reduced just by a little bit. I've also seen a couple comments before criticizing certain laptops for not having the trackpad centered against the entire laptop, but whenever you have the alpha cluster shifted over to the left, particularly with keyboards that have a number pad, you need to center the trackpad against the alpha cluster or else you need to move your hand over to the right to use the trackpad. On the bottom, you have your two speakers. They're not very good, to be honest. I mean, they're fine for just YouTube videos. They sound about average. Beside the usual lack of bass and detail from being bottom firing, these speakers rattle and start to get really distorted in the mid-range between 300 to 1400 Hz. Not really sure why that is. You have two Thunderbolt 3s, a USB-A port, a headphone jack, and a micro SD slot. I like that they designed a hinge for the USB-A port to fit it into something this thin. It's actually kind of neat. And they also have a physical kill switch for the webcam if you're someone who cares about your webcam privacy. To take off the bottom panel, you'll need a Torx T5 screw, and all you have access to is the M.2 drive. The RAM and the Wi-Fi card are both soldered on, unfortunately. There's a 61 watt-hour battery inside that should get you around 9.5 to 10 hours of light use, and the charger that they include ends in a USB-C plug. I would have liked to have seen one of the Thunderbolt 3 ports move to the left side of the laptop so I can charge from either side, but yeah, really solid battery life here. So for $900, I think this is an excellent value, particularly for students who are looking to take advantage of the included pen for stuff like note-taking. Like, for a 2-in-1 device, you take into consideration the excellent screen, assuming you don't pay the extra $80 for the privacy filter, the excellent keyboard, trackpad, and battery life, along with the included pen and leather sleeve, which, by the way, this thing smells like beef jerky. It's a fantastic device, and they priced it very well. The other thing is, if you were to compare this thing against a traditional laptop, I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with the $800 Ultrabook market, but compared to the ZenBooks, I would actually argue that using this thing solely as a laptop would still be a compelling option for $900. Okay, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.